Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. It's your host, Danny Haifong. I'm joined by former UN Marine Corps officer and U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer and UN weapons inspector, Scott Ritter. Thanks so much for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's always great to be on with you, Scott. Hit the like button, everyone. That helps boost this show in YouTube's algorithm. And we're just going to get started, Scott. So I wanted your assessment of how this war is going. I know on previous shows you have said that the U.S. and Israel will soon become defenseless as this war goes on. The New York Times published.
There's an American military officer named Colonel John Boyd. People might want to look him up. His thinking, his philosophies have been adopted by the military, by civilians alike. He is the man who came up with the concept of getting inside your enemy's decision-making cycle. And what he used to describe as something called the OODA loop. OODA is an abbreviation for observe, orient, decide, act. These are the four phases in decision making. You observe, you then orient on what it is you're focused on. You make a decision about what needs to be done, and then you do that decision. And the side that can do this the fastest tends to win. He did it as a fighter pilot, So basically, if two airplanes are coming in, the one initiates, the other one reacts, and he claimed that he could get into a kill position quicker because he could cycle information more quickly than his opponent. His goal was to have the other side reacting to you. Now, the United States and Israel carried out a surprise attack against Iran, one that included the murder, assassination of Ali Khamenei. One would think, therefore, that they've reacted and now the Iranians have to react. But this wasn't the case because we hadn't prepared properly. We had, goals that were linked to, things that could never happen. You can't say you're going to have regime change by killing Ali Khamenei. The reality is, by killing Ali Khamenei, not just murdering Ali Khamenei, you make regime change impossible. Now, anybody who knew anything about Iran would know that that's the case. If you know about just how revered the supreme leader is amongst the faithful, and Iran is a nation of faithful. And if you knew about the Constitution, Iran is a constitutional republic. In fact, Iran is the most effectively functioning democracy in the Middle East. I'll say that again, and I'll be more than happy to take anybody on in a debate on this at any time. Iran functions more effectively as a democracy than any other nation in the Middle East, including Israel. It's a constitutional republic. It's an Islamic republic. But they have mechanisms in place. They have institutions in place that filled the gap created by the death of Ali Khamenei. And they ensured that the regime continued to function. And the murder of Ali Khamenei, made sure that the people would rally around the government. So right off the bat, this was a regime change war. The purpose of the surprise attack was to achieve regime change by facilitating the murder of the man that we all believed death would bring the collapse of Iran. And it turned out to be the opposite. I've said this here, and I've said it before. We lost the war with the first missiles fired into Iran because we don't know what we were doing. We initiated something that that was supposed to achieve a certain result, but achieved the exact opposite result. We defeated ourselves from day one. But more importantly, and we admit it now, we didn't anticipate the Iranian response. We thought by killing Ali Khamenei, Iran would be leadership. It'd be like a ship with no captain at the wheel, the ship just spinning around. That wasn't the case. Iran had a plan, and they immediately implemented the plan, and the plan blew our minds because we didn't think they were going to do this. We thought maybe they'd strike Israel, maybe they'd strike. They struck everything. They did full broad spectrum strike. And so we initiated something, juked, and the Iranians flipped over, and we went, damn, they're on our six. Now the Iranians are driving this ship because we're playing reaction. The Iranians are implementing a plan that they have thought out from the start. They have prepared for it. They have the resources for it. And they're implementing this plan without deviation. The United States, on the other hand, has changed its plan 5 times in 10 days. And we're going to change it again today because there's a new economic reality coming to play, which we didn't anticipate. We didn't anticipate any of this.
Which is wild to me, but continue. Yeah.
It's the most poorly planned military operation in the history of poorly planned military operations. Meanwhile, the Iranians are executing a plan to perfection, to perfection. All you naysayers out there, I mean, I love the neocons. First of all, I love fat neocons who've never served in the military. They're my favorite people because they just sit there and they talk about things they don't understand. And they say, you just wait. We're going to get a culmination of forces that are going to sequence together and achieve a result that's going to collapse the regime from within. Trump is a genius. He's a 5D chess player. And you guys don't understand it. Just because it looks bad right now doesn't mean it's bad. That's fake. We're going to get under there. We're going to undermine. It's going to collapse. We're going to win because we are the lethal fighters. Pete Hegseth has told us so. They're just morons. They don't know anything about war. They don't know anything about geopolitics. And perhaps more importantly, they don't know anything about Iran. We have people talking about Iran who don't know anything about Iran. We have people talking about war who don't know anything about war. And yet we have a mainstream media that gives echo chamber status to these people. They can sit there and talk and talk and talk, get social media, broadcasts and everything. And the stupid American people, I'm sorry, but you are stupid, every single one of you, with the possible exception of a handful of people who are watching your show today. But the rest of them are coming. I look out at my neighborhood. It is just a quiet little sleepy suburban, neighborhood outside of Albany, New York. No one's panicking. They don't understand what's happening. They don't comprehend. You can walk the neighborhood and you see, about 30% I stand with Israel signs, dating back, of course, to the genocide against the people of Palestine. But these are ignorant people, stupid people who just live their lives insulated from the reality of what's happening. And they only believe the crap that they're given on TV. And yet this morning they got a little bit of a wake-up call because it's Monday. And I know on Friday the gas was $3.11 a gallon when I filled up my tank. And today it's $3.41 a gallon. It's gone up 30 cents. And by the end of the day, it's going to go up another nickel. And by the end of the week, who knows where it's going to be, because the price of Brent crude is going through the roof. Why? We didn't anticipate that either. No matter how much our military told us, we will secure the Strait of Hormuz. There's no way Iran could shut it down. Iran shut it down. There's not a damn thing we can do about it. Not a damn thing we can do about it. Qatar's no longer producing gas. Kuwait's no longer producing oil.
Saudi's reducing
producing oil because not because they wanted to stop, because Saudi Arabia is on the verge of being shut down. Baku is going to stop its ability to be able to produce oil if they play stupid games. And this is it. And the world's going to have an energy crash. We've been saying it's going to happen. And there were the genius Americans out there. That's not going to happen. We're energy sufficient. We're America. We got Texas. They frack things. They break the soil open and they get gas out of there. And we're energy sufficient. We're not affected. And then we invaded Venezuela. We got all their oil. We're good to go. And ask yourselves why you're paying through the nose of the gas pump if we're so damn energy sufficient. Ask yourself where the strategic petroleum reserves are. Donald Trump didn't load them up, guys. They're empty. They don't exist. We're screwed. But that's okay. I think it's time the American people pay a price. And we are, but we've lost this war. This war is lost. The Iranians were smarter than us about ballistic missile defense. If you don't mind, I'll give you a quick 5-minute lesson on ballistic missile defense for the stupid people that aren't listening, because everybody listening here is very smart and very attuned and very, but sometimes people will watch the show later on who are stupid. So this is for their benefit. All right. If you take missile defense, understand that every component of the missile defense shield that we've put together over Israel and the Middle East wasn't designed to work with the other. They were designed in a vacuum. Some of them, like the Patriot missile, date back to the original missile defense shield technology, Sentinel technology of the 1970s. And when Raytheon was asked to build a tactical system for the U.S. Army, rather than doing the right thing, which is to design it from scratch, they took the shortcut. And they took 1970s technology and they tried to adapt it and modify it for tactical application. And the Patriot system has never worked properly since then. So yes, the Patriot doesn't work. It never has, and it never will, because we're always playing catch up. When you have to keep putting in, program updates to fix it, that means you're updating against a threat that already exists. It proves it's capable of defeating it. By the time you update it, there's a new threat that you can't meet. And we're seeing that play out in the skies over the Middle East. The Patriot system doesn't work. Iron Dome isn't designed for this. David Sling and Arrow 3, likewise. What you're seeing are systems that are designed to fight. They were designed to fight against a specific missile threat. That means a standard ballistic missile on a ballistic missile trajectory flying at certain speeds. The Iranians, on the other hand, are firing missiles that aren't flying a ballistic missile trajectory. They have the ability to accelerate mid-course. They have the ability to maneuver. And so as these systems seek to acquire something, you might notice that missiles launched are sort of an S-shaped curve to them. That's them adjusting. The radars are cueing in, and they're anticipating a point of intercept. So as the missile travels, the missiles launch, and then it makes the adjustment to get to the point of intercept time, because the Iranians have built a system to defeat this. Now, we've overlaid enough architecture, though, with enough layers that on occasion we successfully intercept an old missile. And everybody goes, yay, aren't we the greatest? Now, what the Iranians have done, though, is they recognize that this is like building a car and getting, we're going to get a Porsche, a BMW, a Chevy, a Nissan, and we're going to put all these parts together and call it a car. And yet it's not going to work because they're not designed to function with one another. That's what we've built with missile defense. But we have, we fooled ourselves because we have created early detection. The early detection is designed to give us as much advance notice as possible. So what happens is this early detection, let's call it a radar system in Qatar. I don't know, maybe it cost $1.1 billion. Let's just throw that out there. And so the missile launches, this early detection picks it up and starts grabbing as much data as possible and then communicating that data from satellite relay stations. You might see those little radar domes out there. And it communicates back so that our systems can fine tune. Rather than scanning the sky, we enable now systems to focus in on a predicted path and we get depth of data collection that gives us more time to launch and respond. And so on occasion, they actually hit something. So what the Iranians have done is they've saturated the skies, they've collected the data points, and then they've taken our eyes out. They blow up all of the radars used to collect data early on. Then they blow up all of the communication links. And so now we have a system that can't work because it wasn't designed to work. And the only way we made it work is by putting these eyes out in front of us and communication back, full spectrum dominance, we call it. And the Iranians have blinded us. It made us unable to speak. And so the system has totally broken down right now. We are looking at complete system dysfunction. The missile defense system that we put over Israel doesn't work. It can't work. It won't work because it's all blinded. But enter the Turks. You see the Turks now, they have two facilities. They have one in Perinçek near Diyarbakir. They have another one, I think, is Kirincik, also near Diyarbakir. The Perinçek facility is an old Cold War era facility used to track satellites. In 1997, we turned it over to the Turks. The Turks may or may not have kept it operational. I don't know. But it is capable of doing detection. Why? How do I know? Because in the Gulf War, we, the United States, used it to detect Iraqi missile launches to provide Israel with the detection of launch, time of flight, and possible impact. And so it was a valuable system. That system still could be used today to track the Iranian missile launches. Then there's the one in Kirincik. This is a big X-band radar affiliated with the THAAD system. It's linked supposedly to feed data to Mark 41 Aegis Ashore missile defense systems in Poland and Romania. But now it's been repurposed. And because they have no more target acquisition, because the Iranians have taken out all the radars in the Middle East, the Turkish radars are now collecting the data and feeding them into the system. So you may ask yourself, why would Iran attack Turkey? Because Turkey's providing targeting data to the ballistic missile defense shield. And so Iran wants to basically make a note. Turkey is not an innocent party in this conflict. Turkey is an active participant in this conflict. And they're repurposing NATO facilities for America's use. This is not a NATO war. NATO is not participating in this war. Any nations that participate do so on an individual basis. So Turkey can't say this is a NATO function, therefore we're just fulfilling our NATO obligations. Turkey has become an active participant in this conflict. But the bottom line is our missile defense system doesn't work. Moreover, if it ever did work, that's when we had PAC-3 missiles, the more advanced version of the Patriot interceptors. We don't have any more. They're all gone. We're firing PAC-2s. PAC-2s don't work. Never did, never will. But that's all we have left. So now the way we make up for the lack of PAC-3s is we do more salvo firing of PAC-2s. You might have seen that recently where there's a lot of missiles going up. no longer contained. We are just blowing out PAC-2s because we're trying to intercept things that they can't. The Iranian missiles are too fast, too maneuverable, and they'll never be intercepted by a PAC-2. So we're burning through the PAC-2s. And when we run out of PAC-2s, we ain't got nothing left. There is literally nothing left. The THAAD missiles that we have are very expensive. We've probably blown through about 80, 90% of our inventory. And what we have left won't work because all the radars are destroyed. They're linked to that X-band radar. There are about 5 of them. 5 have been killed. There's none left except the one in Turkey, which the Iranians will probably end up destroying. The Israelis are out of ammunition. They don't have anything. What we gave, they fired. Israel doesn't have its own. Just so you guys know, they don't produce the missiles. We do. When Iron Dome ran out of interceptor missiles during their fight with Hezbollah and all that, it was American military aircraft flying in from Europe. They were bringing stockpiles of interceptor missiles that we had stockpiled here because we make them. Israel doesn't make anything. We make them, and we don't make enough, and there's none left. And it's game, set, match. Guess who's not running out of missiles? Iran. Iran has sufficient missiles to last for about 6 months of sustained activity, maybe even longer. They have enough drones to last for about 1.5 years of sustained launch capability. Iran has planned for this war for 20 years. Iran is operating on a game plan. Iran is inside our decision-making cycle. Iran is executing the OODA loop more effectively, more efficiently than the United States and Israel. Iran will win this war.
Yeah, well, those are all really important points, Scott. And I'll just pull up some images of what you're talking about.
And to steal the land, you must depopulate the land. That means that you are going to carry out an Israeli version of Plan Ost, the Plan East, the Nazi plan to depopulate Belarus and in Western Russia, to eliminate millions of Slavs to make Lebensraum, living room for the greater German people. Israel is the modern manifestation of Nazi Germany. They are Nazis. This is not an exaggeration, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about literally the worst people on the planet. Literally, the worst people on the planet reside in this artificial entity called Israel that no longer has a right to exist. Whatever the world thought about when they created Israel in 1948, that no longer exists because that Israel has become an illegal, parasitic attachment to humanity. And the fact that Iran is in the process of erasing Israel from the map of the earth, I'm not going to shed any tears. If you live in Israel, leave Israel. Leave. And when you leave, don't bring your sick ideology with you. Go and join other nations and hopefully integrate into them and live peacefully, harmonious, a long and fruitful life. But the idea of greater Israel driving a nation like the United States, nations in Europe, to commit acts of racist genocide, because this is what it is. This is literally about the white man's burden. This is white versus brown, straight up. And if you're an Arab and you don't know that, if you live in the Gulf Coast nations and you don't understand that you're just an inferior human being in the eyes of the Israelis, I mean, I, as an American, a white American, know that. I'm a goy. Goyim. And they told me straight to my face, you're subhuman. Okay, I get it. That's why I hate you. And I will fight you because nobody wants to be called subhuman. But, imagine, being an Arab, knowing that your government has bent the knee to Israel, knowing that they've agreed to the Abraham Accord, which perpetually subordinates the Gulf Arab states to greater Israel, knowing that they have allowed Israel to call the shots, knowing that Israel has drawn them into a war that's now going to destroy their economies. I wouldn't be very happy. There's reports of the people in the streets of Bahrain seeking to overthrow the king. Please do. The model you should use is the model that was used against the Hashemites in Iraq. Yeah, I'm sorry. That meant the family was taken out, butchered, and dragged through the streets. But basically, that's what should happen to illegitimate royal families that have ruled only because they are the byproduct of British colonialism in the region. They have no legitimacy to rule. They're not anointed by God. They weren't selected by the people. They were picked by the British, and the British continue to manipulate them. And now the United States has taken over. Now Israel has taken over. So basically, the Arab people of the Middle East are governed by people who have allowed themselves to be subordinated to, neo-colonial actors, whether it's the British, Americans, or the Israelis. That's the truth. The only nation that doesn't do that is Iran. And that's why we're attacking Iran, because Iran doesn't play the game. Iran is a sovereign state. Iran does what the Iranian people want them to do. And they have a government that is supported by the Iranian people, which is why we will never overthrow it.
Yeah, great point, Scott. And what's so interesting, well, I mean, I can say interesting, but actually it's really it's shocking in the stupidity of it, because you have, of course, we know what the U.S. and Israel's goals are. It's regime change, and you outline really well why that hasn't worked in Iran's retaliatory response. If we get to this point of the oil question, the economic question, it gets even more stupid, because even as the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed, the U.S. not in Israel not only targeted Tehran's oil or Iran's, I think in southern Tehran, its oil depots, but it's still hitting.
This weekend, I can't remember. It's don't die. I can't remember what the first two things are, but it's a great movie about AI and people addicted and watching cell phones and the world coming to an end and everything. But you'd think that what we just saw was actually part of a very bad Hollywood movie script. I mean, because we're supposed to be Americans. I mean, we have freedom of speech, baby. Our brains work, supposedly. And we're supposed to be above this. This is the kind of crap we're not supposed to fall through. Those other people around the world fall for this. The Nazis fell for that propaganda, but we can't, because we're Americans. And Americans are smart. We're educated. And, we believe in freedom. Freedom would never allow ourselves to become, compliant little, slaves to, a unified propaganda statement published by mainstream media controlled by the government. The government can't control, because we're Americans. We're better than that. Oh, good God, we're the worst people in the world for it. I mean, if you're an American and you're watching TV and you see somebody go, short-term pain for long-term gain. First of all, it's a little too cute, a little too glib. If it happened once, I'd say you got to work on that one, guys. That's bad writing. But then they repeat it, and they repeat it, and they repeat it, and you suddenly realize that we don't have a free press. Wake up, America. We don't have a free press. That's why you need to hit the like button for Danny Haifong. Really, seriously. Because, Danny Haifong and Garland Nixon and Judge Napolitano and other people, they provide alternatives to what you just saw. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I mean, we are a dysfunctional country, and we can't work because the American sheep can't be awoken, because they're being lulled into a false sense of complacency by a mainstream media that's been hijacked by a singularity that is doing what? You're not allowed to say this. I mean, there was a David Chappelle joke. I found it very funny. And I hope I don't insult too many people when I say it, but I don't care anymore. What do you call he said, what do you have when you get a group of black people together? It's called a gang. What happens when you get a group of Italians together? It's called a mob. What happens when you get a group of Jews together? It's called a coincidence. And I mean, it's just a funny joke, because it means that we're not allowed to talk about the obvious seizure of control of everything in America. All the tools that are used to inform the population, shape the population, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's TV, whether it's the media, is controlled by a cabal of pro-Israeli Zionists. There's hardly any exceptions. And you just saw that. Short-term pain for long-term gain has become a mantra that's repeated across the board. Proof positive that there's a singularity controlling this, and that singularity is working on a pro-Israeli agenda. So all you Make America Great Again people out there, you do understand that we are literally Make Israel Great Again, that America doesn't function into this at all, which is why we need Danny Haifong to come out and, provide alternative perspectives. But it's embarrassing. I mean, it's funny. We laugh about it, Danny, but this is actually the equivalent of being a doctor and throwing up a chest x-ray and going, holy shit, you got stage 4 lung cancer that has spread to your brain, your pancreas, and your bones, and you're dead. America, you just saw the image. That's us. That's a reflection on our society. We're dead. We are infected by a cancer. And how do you purge that out? How do you do that? It's so deeply ingrained into everything we do. Every mainstream institution has been infected by this. And that means, again, it's not just the media. It's the things that feed the media. Do you understand that there are universities out there that train journalists whose sole function is to graduate from journalism school and then seamlessly fold into this system? So the journalism schools have to condition these people to think this is okay. So what we call journalists aren't. They're just actors in the game that's being played to manipulate data. There's a guy I did an interview. If you guys want to see it, it's on my Russia House podcast, free of charge. You can go get it. Andrei Elnitsky, former lieutenant general, senior advisor to Shoigu when Shoigu was the defense minister of Russia. He has published papers and come up with this idea called mental war. And he talks about mental war. Basically, mental war is what is done by outsiders to cause a society to collapse from within by taking over the mechanisms of communication, things that, movies. When you go to the movies, the cinema is designed to condition you to achieve a certain outcome because the movies are controlled by mainstream studios that don't allow outliers to get out there. You can make a great movie, but if they decide, well, we ain't putting that out there in theaters, then nobody sees it and you have zero impact. The movies they put out in theaters are designed to manipulate your minds. Straight up said it. Anything you see on TV is designed to manipulate your minds. What you listen to on the radio, designed to manipulate your minds, and they're all controlled by the same people. And so they're out there conditioning you to accept as normal things that otherwise sane people would say that's insane. Mental warfare, the destruction of America from within. By whom? By the pro-Israeli Zionistic cabal. We have to start calling it for what it is. I mean, it's not anti-Semitic, ladies and gentlemen. It's not anti-Semitic. It's just the god-awful truth that the pro-Israeli crowd is anti-American and is seeking the destruction of America. They're willing to use America as a tool to achieve their broader objectives. And we're just sitting here doing nothing. You'd think there'd be people in the streets, but they don't. They ignore it. They are compliant sheep. They've wrapped themselves in the cocoon of comfort. They become prisoners to technology, and they have this cocoon of comfort. And so long as you don't rock it, make everybody happy, they just let it happen. They don't want to disturb it. And that's where we are as a society. And this war is a manifestation of that. This war should be opposed by everybody. If you got a second, can I talk about the murder of 170 school children? Because most Americans, listen to Donald Trump. Iran did it. Listen to Pete Hegseth. He said, well, we're investigating it, but don't worry about it. We're the most lethal military in the world. My God, I can bench press 315 pounds, and we are killers. That's what we do. We kill. And forget rules. Forget those woke rules that constrained our ability to inject lethality into the problem. You see the mindset? And Americans went, oh, okay. I don't know how many people went, that's what I voted for. That's what I voted for. You see that over and over on social media. That's what I voted for. No, this is why I have to say, when people say that, the way our country was created, we knew about you. So you're part of what's called a faction. Federalist Paper number 10, James Madison warned us about the dangers of factions. And factions are controlled by a functioning republic, a constitutional republic that has checks and balances in place. But these checks and balances have to work, or else the executive, which has been imbued with a great deal of authority, becomes a tyrant. That's Federalist 51. Again, James Madison, smart man. He warned us about the dangers of a tyrant and the need for checks and balances. So today, when we have the Congress of the United States basically saying this isn't a war, it's a defensive operation, and Congress doesn't need to be involved. That's the Speaker of the House saying that. That means Congress has taken itself off the map. The Supreme Court has, challenged the president on tariffs, but the president says, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I want. So the Supreme Judiciary is off the map. We're left with a tyrant, the executive. And now the executive isn't governed by the people who, believe in the necessity of checks and balances, but by factions. I voted for this. I voted for tyranny. I voted for a cult of personality. I voted for a man who says that I am beholden to no laws. I only believe in my own sense of personal morality, which is problematic given the Epstein files. But being that as it may, this is a man who says he governs as a dictator. So there we are. And what are the consequences? The Geneva Conventions, 1949, were passed because of the excesses that were done under war, even by the victors. There was a recognition that even the victors went too far, that we have to protect civilian populations. It's essential that there has to be laws governing war. And these were updated in 1977, the additional protocol to the Geneva Convention. And now, there are people out there rolling their eyes going, oh, come on, Sky, it's international law. Oh, yes, but see, it was adapted and adopted by the United States Department of Defense through the Law Warfare Manual. So it's ours now. We own it. And one of the interesting things in there is they talk about targeting. They say you have to be very careful when you start targeting places to ensure that you aren't hitting civilian targets, that you've done your due diligence. And there's this thing called distinction, that you must make a distinction between military targets and civilian targets, which requires an additional level of analysis in work. This is the law. It's the law. And so we did. I can tell you, as somebody who has done this in war, there's a lot of effort goes into ensuring that the targets we hit have a military value, that they aren't civilian in nature, and that we look at the consequences of striking this target. Will there be collateral damage to civilians? And then you get into proportionality. Is the value you get from militarily from striking this target proportional to the damage you're doing to civilians? And if the answer is no, we're killing far too many civilians, then you don't bomb the target. The answer is if we don't know, we can't distinguish that this is military civilian, you don't bomb the target. Now, we had screwed up a lot during the global war on terrorism. So in 2023, the Department of Defense issued a new proclamation, a new directive called the Civilian Harm and Mitigation Response thing. And what this did is create a new layer of oversight for targeting and for planning wars. And this team's job was to go through each target and ensure that we aren't making a mistake here, that this isn't a civilian target, that this is a military target. It's what we're supposed to do under the law of war, but we've gotten a little sloppy with it during the global war on terrorism. So we put in new regulations to say this is what we need to do if we're going to fight a war, to be compliant with our own laws and the laws of international conflict. Pete Hegseth did away with that directive, canceled it in his effort for lethality. So there is no civilian harm and mitigation response capability in America anymore. Instead, what there is a literal free-for-all. We can do anything we want. Now, y'all have heard the term double tap. Double tap is a term that's been used a lot derisively against regimes. We've accused the Syrian government of double tapping people, dropping their barrel bombs. We've accused the Iranians of double tapping. We've accused Russia of double tapping. We've accused everybody of double tap. On the first day of this conflict, we had picked out several targets to strike. We claimed we were striking targets related to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Command. One of these was the Manab naval base, where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Command had warehouses and a medical facility, etc. And we struck it with 5 cruise missiles. Now, normally you'd say, okay, but you'd have confidence that the U.S. military did the right thing. Certainly we looked to distinguish the targets to make sure that there were no crossover targets, nothing that could have been a protected target. But that unit doesn't exist anymore. Instead, what we have is artificial intelligence assisted targeting, a program called Claude, put together by Palantir, helped create these targets just out of the blue. Basically, they scan databases. They're given certain parameters. Find me facilities affiliated with the Revolutionary Guard Command who have buildings of the following dimensions. And then they turn those buildings into targets. And then the targets are assigned weaponry, etc. So the Manab Naval Facility was assigned 4 impact points. 2 impact points were warehouses of a certain dimension. 1 impact point was a building that turned out to be a medical facility, but we didn't do the distinction, you guys. So even though everybody knew it was a medical facility, I didn't, and we didn't double check it because we don't have the civilian harm mitigation response capability anymore. So we just said put a cruise. And then another one was up there in the upper right corner, and there was a large facility there, and we decided we're going to bomb that one too. So we sent 5 cruise missiles. So Scout, why 5? I thought it was just 4. Now we get to the beauty of the Tomahawk Block 4. The Tomahawk Block 4 system has capability to have a number of targets programmed into it, and it can change its targets on the way because it's communicating. But a really cool part of it is that it can loiter